The impact came from nowhere. Detective Riley Chase felt her body launch through the air as the black SUV plowed into her at 40 miles per hour. Time stretched like taffy as she tumbled across the rain-slicked asphalt, her service weapon skittering away into the darkness. The world spun in sickening arcs flashing red and blue police lights, the glint of rain under street lamps, the distant scream of sirens. "Officer down! Officer down at Franklin and 12th!" The panicked voice of her partner crackled over the radio, now lying shattered beside her broken body. Riley tried to move, to reach for her radio, but nothing responded. A warm stickiness spread beneath her as rain pelted her face. Her thoughts flickered like a dying bulb to the killer she'd been hunting for months, to the trail that had finally heated up, to her partner left alone to face what lurked in the shadows. As darkness crept in from the edges of her vision, a figure approached through the rain. Not her partner, someone else, the faint outline of a surgical mask, cold eyes peering down at her. "The game isn't over, Detective," whispered a voice she'd heard only in nightmares and interrogation tapes. "It's just beginning." The darkness swallowed her whole. 6 months earlier, Riley adjusted her uniform in the bathroom mirror of the 30th precinct. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a tight professional bun, her blue eyes sharp despite the early hour. She'd made detective just 8 months ago, the youngest woman in the department's history to earn the shield. "Chase, Captain wants you," called Officer Mendez from the hallway, and he's wearing his somebody screwed up face. Riley sighed, straightening her collar one last time. Captain Garrett's somebody screwed up face was legendary among the ranks. The fact that he wanted to see her at 6:48 a.m., 12 minutes before her shift officially started, wasn't promising. The precinct hummed with the controlled chaos of shift change-a-night officers filing reports, day shift grabbing coffee, the continuous background noise of ringing phones and clacking keyboards. Riley navigated through the maze of desks toward the captain's office, feeling eyes tracking her movement. Despite her accomplishments, she still sensed the undercurrent of doubt from some of the old guard. Captain Garrett didn't look up when she entered, his salt and pepper hair catching the fluorescent light as he studied a file. Finally, he raised his head, eyes heavy with something Riley couldn't quite read. "Close the door, Chase." She complied, remaining standing until he gestured to the chair across from his desk. "You familiar with the Nursery Rhyme Killer?" he asked, sliding a file toward her. Riley felt a cold spike of interest. Everyone in law enforcement within 3 states knew about the Nursery Rhyme Killer 6 victims in 14 months, each staged according to a different children's rhyme. The FBI had jurisdiction, but they were seemingly no closer to catching the killer than when the first body had been discovered. "Yes, sir," she replied, keeping her voice even. "FBI's forming a task force. They've requested one of our detectives." He leaned back in his chair. "I'm giving them you." Riley's heart hammered against her ribcage. This was career-making or career-ending. "Sir, there are more experienced." "You have the best clearance rate in the department," Garrett cut her off. "Your psych background gives you insight others don't have. And frankly, you see patterns where others see coincidence." His expression softened marginally. "You earned this, Chase. Don't make me regret it." 3 hours later, Riley found herself in a conference room at the FBI's field office, surrounded by case files, crime scene photos, and the suffocating sense of 6 lives violently ended. Special Agent Marcus Decker, the lead on the case, was a stern-faced man with 20 years of experience hunting the worst humanity had to offer. "The latest victim was found 3 days ago," Decker explained, pinning another photo to the evidence board. "Sandra Whitman, 32, kindergarten teacher. Jack, be nimble. Jack, be quick." The photos showed a woman's body positioned next to an elaborate candle display. Riley swallowed hard, focusing on details rather than the horror of the scene. "The killer's evolving," she observed quietly. "The first victims were positioned after death. Sandra shows defensive wounds. He kept her alive during part of his ritual." Decker nodded grimly. "Each scene is more elaborate than the last. He's growing confident, taking more time with the victims." He paused, studying Riley. "What else do you see, Detective?" Riley approached the board. eyes tracking from one victim to the next. The nursery rhymes aren't random. They're telling a story. Humpty Dumpty for the banker who embezzled funds. Little Miss Muffet for the arachnologist. There's connection between the rhyme and the victim's life. And Sandra Whitman? What's Jack B. Nimble telling us? Riley studied the teacher's file. Nothing immediately jumped out until she noticed an old newspaper clipping Sandra receiving an award for saving 2 children from a classroom fire 3 years earlier. Fire, Riley whispered. She saved children from a fire. Jack jumping over the candlestick, it's about escaping flames. Decker's expression remained unchanged, but something flickered in his eyes. That connection wasn't in any press release. You've got good instincts, Chase. The partnership between Riley and Decker grew over the following weeks, their different approaches creating friction that occasionally sparked insight. They interviewed families, colleagues, and friends of each victim, searching for connections beyond the obvious. 1 month into the investigation, they caught their first real break. The candles at Sandra Whitman's scene, Riley said, bursting into their shared office space. I've been researching the manufacturer. They're hand-poured by an artisan shop called Childhood Memories. Each candle is custom-made to order. Decker looked up sharply. Tell me they keep records. Better. They remember the customer. Male, early 30s, soft-spoken, paid cash, but they have security footage. She placed a grainy printout on Decker's desk. It's not much, but it's something. The figure in the image wore a surgical mask not unusual in post-pandemic America and a baseball cap pulled low. Still, it was their first glimpse of the killer. Run facial recognition, Decker ordered, already reaching for his phone, and get the shop owner in for a cognitive interview. 2 days later, they had a name. Dr. Elliot Mercer, 34, former pediatric surgeon whose career ended after a child died on his operating table 3 years ago. The child's name was Jack. It fits, Riley said, scanning Mercer's file. After Jack's death, there were allegations of negligence, though nothing was ever proven. Mercer resigned, disappeared from the medical community. But why these victims? Decker questioned. What connects a banker, an arachnologist, and a kindergarten teacher to a disgraced surgeon? The answer came from Sandra Whitman's sister, a childhood trauma support group. All 6 victims had, at some point, attended meetings at the Healing Heart Center, where survivors of childhood trauma worked through their past. Dr. Mercer had been a volunteer counselor there after leaving medicine. He had access to their deepest fears, their most private memories. Riley realized, the nursery rhymes aren't just signatures. They're personalized torments based on each victim's childhood trauma. With a suspect identified, the investigation accelerated. Mercer's apartment yielded nothing. He'd abandoned it weeks ago, but they managed to track his vehicle through traffic cameras. He was still in the city, hunting his next victim. Then came the letter, delivered directly to the precinct, addressed to Detective Riley Chase. What comes after Jack B. Nimble? Riley read aloud, her voice steady despite the chill running down her spine. Jack be dead. Are you nimble enough, Detective Chase? Can you save the next little lamb before it's slaughtered? Inside the envelope was a child's drawing of a house with X's where the windows should be, and a crude rendering of a woman with blonde hair lying on the ground outside. He's been watching you, Decker said, face grim. This is personal now. It was always personal, Riley replied, studying the drawing. For him, anyway. The question is, who's the next target? The answer arrived with brutal clarity the next morning. Dr. Leanne Harper, child psychologist and director of the Healing Heart Center, failed to show up for work. Her car was in the parking lot, her office door unlocked, coffee still warm on her desk. Mary had a little lamb, Riley whispered, remembering the letter. He's escalating, taking someone in broad daylight. The FBI tactical team assembled within the hour. Traffic cameras caught Mercer's van heading toward the industrial districta, sprawling complex of abandoned warehouses and manufacturing plants. As they geared up, Riley felt a weight pressing against her chest. Something wasn't right. This is too easy, she told Decker as they strapped on their vests. He's meticulous, patient. Why leave such an obvious trail? Maybe he wants to be caught, Decker suggested, Or maybe he wants an audience. Or maybe he wants me, Riley said quietly. The raid on the warehouse went exactly as planned until it didn't. Dr. Harper was there, bound to a chair, unconscious but alive. No sign of Mercer. As the team secured the scene, Riley noticed a small device blinking beneath Harper's chair. "Everybody out!" she screamed. "Bomb!" The explosion knocked Riley off her feet, sending her crashing into a stack of metal drums. Through smoke and dust, she saw Decker dragging Harper's limp form toward the exit. Coughing, ears ringing, Riley struggled to her feet. A shadow moved through the smoke. "Detective Chase," came the soft voice she recognized from the witness interviews, from the family's descriptions. "I was hoping we'd meet this way." Elliot Mercer emerged from the haze, surgical mask in place, eyes coldly analytical. In his hand, a scalpel gleamed. "You understand the game," he continued, circling her slowly. "Better than the others. You see the patterns, the purpose." Riley drew her weapon. "It's over, Dr. Mercer. You've hurt enough people." "Hurt?" He tilted his head. "I've freed them. From secrets, from lies, from the shadows that followed them since childhood." He stepped closer. "Just like the shadows that follow you, Riley." A chill ran through her. "You don't know anything about me." "Don't I?" Youngest female detective. Overachiever. Always trying to prove yourself. His eyes crinkled above the mask he was smiling. "Always trying to outrun the memory of finding your mother after she hanged herself. You were 8, weren't you? Old enough to remember, too young to save her." Riley's hand shook slightly. How could he know? That information wasn't in any file. "You're the pattern I've been waiting for," Mercer whispered. "The final verse in my nursery rhyme." Outside, sirens wailed closer. Backup was coming. All Riley needed to do was keep him talking. "Why children's rhymes?" she asked, steadying her aim. "Why that specific signature?" "Because childhood is where monsters are born," he answered simply. Each victim carried their monster into adulthood, letting it devour them from inside. I simply externalized the process. A crash from the far end of the warehouse, tactical teams entering through the back. Mercer's eyes darted toward the sound. "This isn't over," he promised, backing away. "Our story's just beginning." Before Riley could fire, he vanished into the smoke. The 5 months that followed were a blur of dead ends and growing frustration. Mercer had gone underground, leaving no trace. The task force dwindled as resources were allocated elsewhere. Eventually, only Riley remained obsessed, working the case on her own time, sleeping in the office more often than her apartment. "You need to let it go," Decker told her during one of his increasingly rare check-ins. "We'll get him when he surfaces again." "When he kills again, you mean?" Riley retorted. "Don't make this personal, Chase." But it was personal. Mercer had chosen her, had somehow uncovered her deepest wound. In her darker moments, Riley wondered if she was the target all along, if the 6 previous victims were just practice for whatever he had planned for her. The break came unexpectedly. A pawnshop owner reported someone matching Mercer's description, selling medical instruments. Surveillance footage confirmed it was him, thinner, hair longer, but unmistakable. He'd made a mistake. Riley and her newly assigned partner, Officer Tom Welker, tracked Mercer to a rundown motel on the outskirts of town. Rain pounded the pavement as they approached his room, backup still minutes away. "We should wait," Welker urged, raindrops streaming down his face. "If we wait, he'll disappear again," Riley countered, checking her weapon. "We take him now." The motel room was empty, recently vacated, judging by the still warm coffee cup. A map on the bed caught Riley's attention, a location circled in red. The old children's hospital, scheduled for demolition the following week. "That's it," she breathed. "Where it all started. Jack died there 3 years ago." They radioed for backup to meet them at the hospital, then sped through the rain-slick streets. Riley's mind raced ahead, piecing together Mercer's endgame. The hospital, the nursery rhymes, her mother, it was all connected in his twisted mind. The abandoned hospital loomed like a concrete mausoleum against the night sky. No sign of other vehicles in the empty parking lot. "Backup's 10 minutes out," Welker said, checking his radio. Riley stared at the dark building. "He's in there. I can feel it." Then, He'll still be there in 10 minutes. But Riley was already moving, drawn forward by something she couldn't name: intuition, obsession, or perhaps Mercer's carefully laid trap. Welker cursed under his breath, following close behind. The hospital corridors were a maze of shadows and echoes, their flashlights cutting thin beams through years of dust and abandonment. They cleared each room methodically, moving deeper into the building's heart. "Pediatric surgical ward should be 1 floor up," Riley whispered, consulting the faded evacuation map on the wall. A crash echoed from above, deliberate, Riley thought. An invitation. They ascended the stairs, weapons drawn, every sense heightened. The pediatric ward was darker, the windows boarded up. Their flashlight beams danced across abandoned medical equipment, toppled gurneys, and peeling paint. "Riley Chase," came the familiar voice, seeming to emanate from everywhere at once. "You've finally arrived for the final act." "Show yourself, Mercer," Riley called, scanning the shadows. "In the operating theater," he replied calmly. "Where it all began. Where it all ends." Riley moved forward, ignoring Welker's whispered warnings. The double doors to the operating theater stood partially open, a faint light flickering within. Inside, Mercer had created a macabre tableau. Candles surrounded an operating table, their flames casting restless shadows across the walls. Photos of all 6 victims were arranged in a circle on the floor. And in the center stood Mercer, surgical mask in place, eyes bright with madness. "Right on time," he said, as if welcoming her to a dinner party. "Though I only expected you, Detective. Your partner is an unwelcome addition." Riley kept her weapon trained on him. "It's over, Elliot. You're not hurting anyone else." "Hurting?" He shook his head sadly. "I told you before, I free people, just as I'm going to free you." "By killing me? That's your grand plan?" "Death would be too simple," Mercer replied. "No, I want you to understand first. To see the pattern completed." He gestured to the photos. 6 victims, 6 nursery rhymes. "Do you know what they spell when you take the first letter of each rhyme?" Riley's mind raced through them. Humpty Dumpty, Little Miss Muffet, Ba Ba Black Sheep, 3 Blind Mice, Rockabye Baby, Jack Be Nimble, HLBTRJ. Her blood froze. The letters were scrambled, but she recognized the pattern. "My mother's name," she whispered. "Judith Bartell." Mercer's eyes crinkled with pleasure above his mask. "Very good, Detective. Your mother took her life when you were 8. My son died on my operating table when he was 8. Symmetry, you see? But your mother chose to leave you. I never chose to leave Jack." "You're insane," Welker interjected, moving to flank Mercer. "I prefer enlightened," Mercer corrected, raising his hand to reveal a detonator. "Now, Detective Chase has a choice to make. Stay and learn the truth about her mother's death, which wasn't nearly as simple as suicideer. Pursue me, and save all those innocent lives in the buildings surrounding us." "What are you talking about?" Riley demanded. "This hospital isn't the only location rigged to explode. There's a preschool 2 blocks east, an apartment building to the west. The countdown has already begun." He backed toward a door at the rear of the operating theater. "Catch me, and maybe I'll tell you where they are." With that, he bolted through the door. Riley hesitated only a fraction of a second before giving chase, shouting to Welker over her shoulder, "Call it in! Get evacuation started!" She pursued Mercer through the labyrinthine corridors, down a flight of stairs, and out into the rain-drenched night. He was heading for the parking lot, toward a black SUV. "Stop!" Riley shouted, closing the distance between them. Mercer glanced back, eyes wild with exhilaration, then suddenly veered into the street. Riley followed without hesitation. She never saw the other vehicle, a police cruiser responding to Welker's call for backup, until its headlights blinded her. The impact came from nowhere, launching her body through the rain-slicked night. As she lay broken on the asphalt, rain washing away the blood pooling beneath her, Mercer approached one last time. He knelt beside her, removing his surgical mask to reveal his face fully for the first time, unremarkable, almost kind, the face of someone you'd trust with your child. "The game isn't over, Detective," he whispered, pressing something into her limp hand, a small, worn photograph. "It's just beginning." Through dimming vision, Riley made out the faded image. Her mother, much younger, standing beside a man whose face had been deliberately scratched out. Written on the back in faded ink, Judith and Elliot, medical school graduation. As darkness claimed her, Riley Chase finally understood the pattern and realized that some secrets are better left buried in the past. Subscribe and like if you enjoyed the video.